I do have to give some warnings because there are some in here. There are mentions of attempt of murder and suicide, and someone losing their mind. But anyways, here we go. It was an uncontinuous gesture, one that Yin didn't notice as she stared at raindrops slowly glistening into the air and the sun finally peeking out from the clouds, blessing the grounds with its refreshing light. The moment after a rain is such a sight to behold, so much that it distracted Yin from the fact that she's currently caressing her stomach. Yin? It was only then she realized what she was doing and immediately let her hand fall to her side. She turned to her sister. "The rain has stopped," Sin said. Yin stared at her sister's attire. She was dressed in a fancy yet comfortable dress, one fitting for a long journey. Her sister anxiously pulled at her white gloves as a worried look defined her face. "We're leaving now. We're going home." Of course, Yin was prepared herself for her sister's departure, but when the day actually came, she couldn't help but feel a bit lonely again. A smile curves her lips as she tried her best not to cry. However, the tears are already pricking at the corners of her eyes. She started towards her sister and engulfed her in a big hug that was long. Yin didn't want to let go, for her sister's embrace felt like home she missed for so long. When Sin pulled away from her sister, she raised her hand and rested upon Yin's cheek. Then, Sin's eyes flickered towards her stomach, towards the life she's currently growing inside. "Are you sure you're going to be all right, dear sister? You'd ought to tell someone." Yin shook her head. "I'll be fine. I have Uraka." "I'm talking about someone abrupt regarding this, like Midnight. You need her to take care of yourself and the baby. Our physician can talk to her and tell her about your condition." "I told you, sister. I don't want you or the physician to tell anyone else. I should be the one to tell everybody. But not right now. Not unless I'm ready." Both were silent as they stared at each other, trying to convince the other to heal their words. In the end, it was Sin who yielded. "Fine, but please take care of yourself. I'll write you from time to time, and you have to write me back." She pressed towards her little sister. Yin nodded. "And you must swear to keep your promise, sister. Don't tell anyone else, even mother and father." With a firm nod, Sin slowly smiled, an earnest one, and she pulled Yin into another embrace before pulling away and bidding goodbye. Watching her older sister walking away from her, Yin couldn't help but feel and miss her already, coupled with the feeling of guilt of lying to her. Because Yin doesn't know whether she will ever be ready to tell anyone else. For now, she's not planning on telling anyone about her pregnancy, not even her husband. She swears not to reveal anything else unless she figures out a way to deal with this. But as Yin turned to the window once again, and the thought about the coop should go on despite the circumstances that was currently acquainted, she didn't even notice that her hand was found its way towards her belly as it started to feel the life growing in it. It was the same. Midnight was seeing the same thing she saw with Yin and the late Queen Mitsuki. The same pregnancy symptoms. Midnight would have known it for her years of service with Queen Mitsuki, especially the time she had gotten sick when her breasts were swollen and tender, and when she had a constant wave of nausea. All of it can be seen in Yin as well. Midnight had her suspicions when Yin became all sickly, but that one encounter during breakfast was pretty much conceived and convinced Midnight that their queen is pregnant. And it is something Yin should share with everyone because an heir has been long awaited and the news of it would have the people in joy. But their queen has been hiding herself and seems to have no intention of coming up front about being pregnant. Midnight is conflicted, and with her deterioration, but needed the truth to come out of Yin's mouth. But of course, the queen could deny it in an instant and order Midnight to ask no further questions. Hence why Midnight decided she needed something. A solid proof that will neglect Yin's denial of her pregnancy. And that brings Midnight to where she is right now. Right in the middle of Yin's chambers, Midnight has snuck inside knowing that Yin has started working in Bakugou's study and Uraka has finished cleaning. She needed to something, and fast. Yin or Uraka could come in anytime soon, and her eyes were yet to spot something. She's been looking at every boxes and cabinets in the room, couches to look at any nook and cranny, and stepped in chairs to see the higher grounds. She even took a peek in Yin's chamber's pot to see if there was any evidence. It was when Midnight has decided to go around in circles when she spots a shade of purple near the fireplace. Right in the inner heart, covered among the ashes, was an undefined purple object. Midnight kneeled and immediately scooped it out, only to see it was a weed with a flower. The purple flower at the top was almost burnt off, along with the prickles of the migraine. It's fragrant that a part of the weed was saved from the fire. Enough that Midnight could describe the type of weed she has in her fingers right now. And it is unfortunate for Yin because right now, Midnight is fuming. Midnight expects to find something to prove Yin's pregnancy, but not this. The noble was immediately out of Yin's chambers when running towards Bakugou's study, where she hoped to find Yin. When Midnight got there, she did not bother to knock and immediately opened the door, which surprised Yin. The royalty hunching over her paperwork suddenly stood at Midnight, barring an announcement. She was about to comment on her rude behavior when she saw the weed that Midnight raised in her hand. "Do you know what this is, Yin?" Midnight asked, her face red from exhaustion as she running up to the study and from the hot anger she felt right now. "No." Yin's answer is short and meek. "Is that true? This, Yin, is a weed I've seen many times before. This is used by many ladies, particularly the ones who wish not to bear a child." "Is that so? And where did you find that?" "In your chambers, right in your fireplace, in a very suspicious station that looks like you've been trying to get rid of it. So tell me, Yin, why are you using this?" Yin didn't answer right away. Although her eyes were fixed on Midnight, her thoughts are far away, trying to think of her next words. "I do not know how to answer that question, Midnight. I wasn't even aware that such a plant was in my possession until you came and assumed me," she said. Midnight's blood seemed to boil in a high rate of heat, but she calmed herself, for there's no use if she lets her anger cloud her mind. "There is no use in lying, Yin. This thistle right here, found in your room, is the very proof that you're preventing yourself from getting pregnant." If Midnight isn't so particularly angry right now, she would have noticed the slight twitch in Yin's perfect blanked face when she mentioned her pregnancy. "And I know you're pregnant, Yin. I understand the changes in your body, and I know that this thistle is useless right now. But I don't understand is why do you not want to bear a child, the heir to this kingdom? Just how many times have you used this to prevent from conceiving?" Midnight asked her, clenching the thistle in her hand. "Now, that's very ludicrous assumption, Midnight. Surely if I was pregnant, you'd be the first I'd turn to. But I didn't. So that means I'm not with child. And that is not mine." The younger woman countered, and from Midnight's point of view, she was obviously lying. "Don't take me for a fool, Yin. You may lie to me all you want, but this?" She gestures to the thistle. "This is proof of your sin. Bakugou won't be happy about this." All of a sudden, Yin's eyes were almost bulging out, and Midnight is determined whether it is pure fear or anger. No. There was a tone of command clinging into Yin's voice. You will send no words to my husband. Midnight has taken aback. You can't deny me of that, right? I can. Yin's voice was blunt, as if determined to end this conversation. I forbid you to have any contact with the king, Midnight. Midnight's anger has reached its peak, and she should be exploding right now. But it was as if her anger had defined her soul, and she felt another emotion. Disappointment. Her hands that were clenching the thistle lipped at her side, and she scoffed. I'm very disappointed in you, Yin, she said, and she meant it. Midnight did not wait for another word and walked out. Disappointed, Midnight is trying to sort through her thoughts. From the moment she has her first encounter with Yin, she thinks that she is the type of woman who bends and complies to what society is expecting her. She is so determined of being a queen, responsible and kind. So it came quite a shock for her to find out that Yin is conspiring against nature by not getting pregnant before and denying that she is with child. She's disappointed that Yin has turned her back on her duties. She's disappointed because she always thinks that even though Bakugou and her aren't in good terms, Yin wouldn't be too blinded by her rage towards her husband to the point that she would deny their own child. Because she's too kind. But where is that now? As Yin sat within the confines of her chambers in the late of the night, she stared at the fire in her fireplace and could peddle it with the thoughts of her mind. Yin has the hearth, and her thoughts were in the fire, basically, burning at every inch of her soul. All of the bad things kept her raging thoughts ablaze. When it's burning, smoke arises, but in Yin's case, it was her heavy tears that rose from her eyes and down her chin. Everyone will know, Yin thought as more tears poured. Bakugou will know. Her mind is currently plagued by the encounter with Midnight earlier and how it posed a whole lot of problems with her coup and possibly her child. Yin couldn't stop thinking about it. The encounter played in her head visibly. She thought about her coup, about Midnight, her husband, and the child in her womb. It was all too sudden for her that she was long abandoned her bed because even when she possesses the most comfortable mattress in the kingdom, her bad thoughts kept her awake and brought her an endless crying dilemma. All of a sudden, Yin can feel the knot starting to form in her stomach. She felt lightheaded and squeezed her eyes shut, aiming to omit the pain. But it only brought out more tears, now dripping into the fabric of her nightgown. I need to do something. Anything. Yin's hand came up to her stomach as she opened her eyes and scanned the room, and spotted a silver glistening on her desk, and her breathing became short. She pushed herself to stumble towards the desk, grabbing the silver object. Yin looked down to see. It's a letter opener. Her hand trembled as she held the object, and her trivial attempt to stop it is to hold the letter opener with both hands. The shaking only worsened. Yin's eyes followed the object from its hilt, whether her hands mostly occupied towards the sharp edges, up into the tip, the sharp tip of the blade that pointed towards her stomach. There's a deep, gradual voice in her back of the mind that says, stab it. It sends a chill down her spine, yet at the same time, Yin couldn't help but feel that if she followed this voice, then everything would be right. Stab it. Stab it. Stab it. Stab it. The object in her hand moved closer and closer until the tip rested ever so slightly in her stomach. Yin can feel the sharpness of the letter opener poking through her skin. And just in one more push, it would predate her. It would pass through her skin and towards the womb that houses her unborn child. And then she would bleed, and the child, altogether, with her, will die. What am I doing? As if a presence suddenly invaded her room and came to slap her out of her insanity, Yin is defeated by the letter opener clashing on the ground and fell with a gasp. Fear has let her go from its choking hold, and she could finally breathe again. Her sobs sounded like life to her. Yin slowly slid down onto the floor as she kept sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She's not speaking to anyone but her child. Her arms came to embrace her stomach, pretending that it was her child she has on her arms right now. It was now guilt she's feeling. It has overpowered her fear, and the only thing she could think of right now is her child. Their child. I'm so sorry. Yin kept repeating those words. It echoed within the four walls of her chambers as she decided she wouldn't stop until she felt that her child has heard her. When Yin swore to Uraraka that she will return her status as a lady, the brunette made a vow to herself that she will make sure to watch over the queen no matter what. But it's not just because of that similar reason, but it's also because Uraraka has learned to love Yin as her dearest friend. Yin's unwavering determination has touched the softest part of Uraraka's heart, and since then, that has become one of the reasons why Uraraka was ready to do anything to serve her. The other reason was when Yin saved Uraraka from the treacherous harassment she had received from Lord Yuri and his manipulation of justice. She will take care of her no matter what of her state. If Yin receives the happiest of news, Uraraka will share the same happiness. If Yin is in the darkness, Uraraka will not hesitate to follow her there. So, when Yin has been facing the greatest of her conflict and sorrow, Uraraka worked harder than before. She made sure that Yin is getting the best care. The brunette kept her eyes on the queen whenever she could, but sometimes Uraraka can't help but worry everything she can't see Yin. For a person who is far into sorrow can do unthinkable things. It's been 6 weeks since King Bakugou left Igneous, and 5 weeks since Yin knew she's pregnant, and Uraraka saw how Yin is getting more and more anxious as days pass by. But when she came to deliver Yin's breakfast this morning, the brunette noticed the queen seems to have calmed down a bit. For the first time in 5 weeks, there's a hint of serenity over her presence. And when Yin spoke, her voice no longer trembled as if she has accepted everything. Everyone is bound to know soon. Uraraka stopped pouring the tea into the cup to look up. Yin wasn't looking at her, but towards the serenity of the garden from her window. I will show, eventually. The brunette didn't know what to say. She doesn't want to utter the bitter truth. If it reveals that Yin is pregnant, the coup will be abolished. Of course, Yin cannot just choose between her child and her abortion. I had a terrifying thought last night. This time Yin's voice was low. Her hands came to caress her stomach. I tried to kill my child. Uraraka's hands weakened, and she immediately set the teapot down on the table. Before she could even drop it, the sound of the glass bouncing deuced to the force of defiance, but not as defending as Yin's words. And myself, Yin added. Your Majesty! Uraraka can't help it anymore, and she ran up to her queen. Why would you think of that? If there's anything at all that you need, I am here. I can help. Just please. Please don't ever think of ending your life or your child's. Uraraka, I can never suffer the thought of you suffering like that, so please, Your Majesty. Just know that I am here for you. Not just your servant, but as your dearest friend. When Uraraka felt Yin's hand gripped at her forearm, She looked up and saw that she could possibly the most heartwarming and grateful smile she has ever seen Yin. "You're not a servant to me, Uraka. You're my friend. And thank you for everything," Yin smiled. "I couldn't do this without you." Uraka was pulled into a hug. The brunette wrapped her arms around Yin and was careful not to soothe her as her mind the baby inside her. And all of a sudden, the two were pulled apart by a knock on the door, and Uraka went to go answer it. However, neither of them were expecting the news they were about to hear from the other side of the door. When Uraka opened it, Midnight was standing outside. She then said, "King Bakugou is here."